Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of HBO series IT Welcome to Derry, episode 2, The Thing in the Dark. I'm loving this series. It's filled with Easter eggs, attention to detail, and references to the broader universe of Stephen King stories. So in this episode, in the terrible ways these girls' dead parents haunt them, I'm gonna break down everything you missed in it. Also, happy Halloween! Hope your dads ain't pickles. Hey, by the way, over on our merch store, nerdright.shop, we have this awesome Face Your Fears horror movie villain shirt that makes a great holiday gift option this time of year, or even as a Christmas time gift option, because you know we're all hearing Mariah's High on the wind. Nerdright.shop, do it. Okay, this episode opens as a point of view shot back at the Capitol Theater at the end of episode 1. We're seeing this all through the eyes of Lily. Lily's eyes. Which I find a bit interesting because the horror trope is that these stories open from the point of view of the killer. I like to think Lily is innocent in all of this, but given her snitching this episode, you can never tell. Lily turns to her right to see Phil and Susie, and then ahead to see the giant mutant baby crawling over the seats toward us, and then to the left to see Teddy. But then something odd happens here. Lily turns to watch the other three run past her down the aisle, but she herself does not follow them. She's frozen in fright as we know that she's having a nightmare. Also, we see Teddy get tackled in the aisle in a splashy kill. Then Phil and Susie head over the rows, but Phil gets grabbed and flown up by the mutant baby where, we can't show it, but he gets ripped apart and smacked into the projector window. So at that point, based on the math, we should just have Ronnie up in the projector booth and then Susie and Lily down on the floor. And we are seeing currently from Lily's point of view. But then, and I guarantee you this was the case in episode 1 too, in the shot we look back and we see Susie and then some other kid who's definitely still alive climbing over the rows again. Susie ducks down and that other kid gets tackled by the giant baby in the back of the theater. Who is this fifth kid? Again, Ronnie is in the booth upstairs and we saw Teddy die in the aisle and Phil get flown up and die up there. I think this might have just been a production error in both episode 1 and episode 2 where they had Teddy getting killed in 2 different ways. I would say that Teddy could have survived that initial tackle in the aisle, but no, that was a super bloody tackle that looked like his whole head and chest were getting ripped open. Certainly not in a healthy enough shape to be able to go back into the aisle and start climbing over the chairs. Anyway, now we see Lily's point of view as she reaches her hand out for Susie, and it's even more clear now. That giant baby has an opportunity to eat Lily's arm and looks right at Lily, but chooses to avoid Lily and instead eats Susie. Why is Lily spared? Why can she walk out of this and not run out, as we saw at the end of last episode? Well, many others online have been speculating this, but I think it is the turtle charm that was on one of her wrists. Assuming that turtle does represent Maturin the turtle, the cosmic entity and source of all good, opposite from the ultimate evil represented by it, maybe that Maturin totem provided some protection. So yes, we learn that this is a vision, a memory being experienced as a nightmare by Lily as she wakes up from this in a cold sweat 1 week after the killings. Which brings us into the opening titles. Episode 2 gives the series opening title sequence that was not in the pilot episode, and it's a creepy ass animation set to Patience and Prudence's 1956 single, A Smile and a Ribbon, which was actually the B-side to the even creepier track by these two sisters, Tonight You Belong to Me. You know, the song that scores every creepy TikTok that you swipe through, along with Tiptoe Through the Tulips and Voice the Color Song and I spend too much time on TikTok apparently. But anyway, A Smile and a Ribbon was meant to just be a sweet 50s jingle about two sisters who just want to be noticed by wearing a smile and a ribbon in their hair. But given the context of this show and the way Pennywise attacks little kids just like this, and sometimes even uses those creepy kids as demonic forms that it shapeshifts into, hearing lyrics like this part in the bridge, the bigger my toothy grin is, the smaller my troubles grow, the louder I say I'm happy, the more I believe it's so. Yeah, it takes on a far more sinister tone after seeing poor Maddie smile with Pennywise's warped bucktooth grin. Basically, it's saying, just pretend to be happy and you will be happy. Whether you're cutting your first reaction or your 100th breakdown, editing is the part that eats the most time. Here at New Rockstars, we're lucky because we have not just one, not just two, but a whole team of editors. But not everyone has a full editing crew, and that's where Riverside comes in. Riverside's new chat-based editing can turn hours of cuts into minutes. With Riverside's chat-based editing, you can just type what you want, cut the pauses, add captions, make it punchier, and instantly delivers a finished cut that's ready to post. It's editing that feels like magic, designed for creators who want speed, quality, and control. You can refine or repurpose anything you record. No extra software, plugins, or switching between apps. You can record, edit, and publish all from within Riverside. Riverside automatically cleans up your audio so it sounds studio ready, even if you record it in your bedroom. And the best part is, you're still in complete control. Riverside just handles the editing grind. Think of it this way. You're Nick Fury on a helicarrier, calling the shots while while Riverside's co-creator is like a team of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents doing the behind-the-scenes work without any of them playing Galaga. Editing doesn't have to be painful. Be the first to post, not the last to edit. Try Riverside's chat-based editing free at creators.riverside.com/new Rockstars with code Rockstars. Thanks to Riverside for partnering with us on this video. Now, the visuals in these opening credits take the form of a postcard welcoming us to the town of Derry, but the landmarks we see are all sites of terrible events, which is pretty much the case everywhere in Derry. We see the Paul Bunyan statue. That's where Richie will get terrorized when it pretends to be the statue coming to life with razor-sharp teeth. Also, long ago, lumberjack Claude Hero killed a bunch of men with an axe in this town. Of course, the statue going up is the source of much of the town anger in this episode. We see a family picnicking, which could be the Marksons. John Markson poisoned his family and then himself with mushrooms in Derry. We see the Derry standpipe on the right here. Then we see a girl who does have a ribbon in her hair, which matches the moment we hear this lyric in the song. She looks into that drain that looks a lot like the street where poor Georgie gets killed. We also see the Capitol Theater in the background where the Music Man is playing, and Keene's Pharmacy. So Norbert Keene is the Derry pharmacist in the It novel. We saw him in the movies. He's the father to Greta Keene in the 2017 film Bev Distracts Mr. Keene, where it's implied he's a pedo. And like in the book, we learn that the asthma medication that he gives Eddie is actually a placebo. Also in the book, It possesses an elderly Mr. Keene and tells adult Eddie to get out of Derry. On the side of this pharmacy is an Uncle Sam recruitment poster that we know from the trailer will come to life at some point this season. On the right is the Jade of the Orient Chinese restaurant. There's a missing boy poster on the ground by the drain, and it looks like the missing kid posters that we see throughout Derry this episode. Then we come out of a hole in the wood of the Kissing Bridge. We see these two boys smiling at each other, which seems like a reference to Adrian Mellon and Don Haggerty, the adult gay couple in the book who get beaten up by some men. Adrian gets thrown off the bridge where Pennywise bites him down there. We see a version of this hate crime in the opening scene of It Chapter 2. Further downstream, we see its glowing yellow eyes with its squid tentacles offering a lollipop to a kid. We zoom out from a kid screaming as he undergoes a lobotomy. This is at Juniper Hill, the asylum where Lily returns this episode. Then we pass the Nebolt Street house where Pennywise's eyes appear in the window. This is the abandoned house that had burned down where the sunflowers still grew in front of it even after the burning. We zoom out further to see that the flames that are surrounding this house also are accompanied by one of Pennywise's red balloons floating away from it. The flames are really coming from a nuclear blast shooting up from it in a mushroom cloud as a smiling teacher points to it on a projector screen. Kids in this classroom are all ducking in cover as Bert the Turtle is on the poster, and then the kid in the back of the room screams as the operator of the projector is the gloved clown hand of Pennywise. We zoom out of a bullet hole in the glass of a windshield. This was from the shootout between the Bradley gang and the Vigilantes of Derry in 1935. That will be season 2 of this show. We see Pennywise actually in the upstairs window with a gun. Are we gonna find out it was Pennywise and not Lee Harvey Oswald who shot JFK? Again, 11/22/63 does have Jake Epping pass through the town of Derry. I'm really hoping that happens on this season. We see Banning's gun shop and Bowers roadside service. So Bowers is a family name of Henry Bowers from It, and it seems like his grandfather is the chief of police in 1962. So maybe here in 1935 it was that guy's dad's business. Now we fly out from the eye of a flaming Easter bunny on the day of the Kitchener Ironworks explosion in 1908. That's where season 3 will go. That took place on Easter Sunday. This is the Easter bunny, and that's why the kids have the Easter baskets. All of these tableaus are shown in the letters of Derry on the final reveal. Now, one final thing that I spotted by pausing at the exact second on the directed by Andy Muschietti part, there is a red orb that flashes for just one frame on the right. Now, there are film scratches and artifacts throughout the sequence, but this seems like one deliberate one as yet another hidden red balloon, like the red balloon I spotted behind Lily in the mirror last episode. So now we go to the Grogan's neighborhood where there is a painted sign on the brick wall for Melvin's Pickles. Again, a reminder of the fate of Lily's father. 2 Derry cops stake out in front of the Grogan house, and the younger one makes a clue joke, to which the older cop says, "Hey, little Philly Malkin went to school with my son. Show some respect." But then shortly after this jokes that since they never found the bodies of the kids, maybe Grogan ate them. A reminder that Pennywise always takes the bodies of the kids that he kills. Hank's mother complains about those cops outside, and we see on the wall some framed wedding photos of Hank and his late wife, Ronnie's mother. The only photos they have around the house are from that mom on her wedding day. Thus why Pennywise takes the form of Ronnie's mother wearing her wedding gown and her wedding veil later on. The grandma says Ronnie is acting like Nora Charles, referring to the detective character with Nick Charles from the Thin Man novel, films, radio show, and TV show. Leroy sips a PBR while reading the Derry Press with the headline, "Kennedy, more advisors to South Vietnam." We are in April 1962, so this would be referring to the Kennedy administration increasing the military presence in South Vietnam before Kennedy would be assassinated, replaced by Lyndon B. Johnson, and the Gulf of Tonkin would blow the whole thing open. Another headline, nuclear test ban support, mom and babe say stop. And here comes a mom and babe probably joining in that chorus. Leroy's wife Charlotte and his son Will. Will Hanlon is Mike Hanlon's father. So hey, here's one kid we can feel safe about surviving this season. In the novel, Will Hanlon has several siblings that he has to take care of, but here in the Muschietti continuity, he seems to be an only child. Charlotte says,
well, we kept it well below the speed limit.
Yep, in 1962, in many towns across America, black families would have to worry about driving through what were called sundown towns, where local cops would look for any reason to pull over these families. And I hate to say it, but you know, America hasn't come that far from that kind of thing. Looking at you, Ice. Marge tries to join the patty cakes, and one girl confesses a crush on Scotty Mills. The other two laugh, and Marge finds her way in, trying to mock this weakest girl by doing an impression of Scott the Snot. But when Patty clocks one girl laughing a little too hard at this newcomer, she immediately turns on Marge. The power dynamics of every Regina George-led trio or quartet of plastics in all eras of history? That's most terrifying to me. Principal Dunleavy does the morning announcements with the little xylophone chime that we saw in Grease, and he says that the cafeteria is replacing sloppy joes with meatloaf that day. Probably a sensitivity thing to not have a messy, red, gooey meat dish given all the previous week's carnage. In general, this class's lesson is also weirdly about food, the 4 basic food groups. Again, just a lot of food details in an episode about pickles and getting eaten. Based on this list on the board, the first thing a kid would see on the left there is 4 servings of ice cream a day supports my bones and teeth? Hell yeah! I mean, hey, maybe this teacher is a form of Pennywise trying to fatten these kids up. This teacher tries to shame Will for being late.
Are you new to the concept of time, Mr. Hanlon?
You mean, like, relativity?
Yeah, she doesn't know shit about Einstein's theories of relativity, and she's taking it out on the smarter kid. On Charlotte's walk through Derry, she passes the pharmacist of Keene's drugstore. I don't know if this guy is young enough to be Norbert Keene, the one we see in 1989, or if this guy would be Norbert's dad. She passes some greasers outside the Falcon Tavern. The Falcon in Derry is from the novel. It's a bar frequented by gay men, and we're gonna come back to this bar later, but here in this moment outside, I can't really tell if these 3 guys are patrons of the bar or bigots looking to beat up someone inside. I'm just gonna assume the latter, because it's Derry. Charlotte passes an alleyway that looks like something menacing would be waiting for her at the other end where we're standing. Then some guys egg this sign for the Paul Bunyan Monument, and fun Easter egg here, this is proposal number 1408. 1408 was a Stephen King short story turned into the John Cusack Samuel L. Jackson film in 2007. We see the Paul Bunyan statue being lifted into place in that same park with that same stage structure that we saw in Derry in the 2017 and 2019 film. At the butcher shop, Miss Kavanaugh complains about the eyesore of the statue and says the grand dames of Derry won't stand for it. Aha, so that women's group on the Derry billboard that we saw in episode 1 will get explored, and they seem just as fun to be around as the Legion of White Decency. The butcher introduces himself.
Stan Kirsch. Kids call me Stanley Cleaver.
Whoa, so Mrs. Kirsch was a character from the 90s ABC miniseries and the memorable scene with Adult Bev in It Chapter 2. Since she wasn't in the book, it was never really clear if Mrs. Kirsch was a real woman or just a form that Pennywise took, but presumably this guy in 1962 would have been her father, like if she was around that age in 2016. And if this guy is nicknamed Cleaver by the kids, I assume Pennywise is gonna take his form to freak some character out, especially if he seems somewhat nice here. But not that nice, because the kid gets beaten up outside by 3 bullies, which just gets ignored by everyone else walking around. And Stan's like, boys will be boys. The people of Derry, ignoring the obvious evil in plain sight. It's just a theme for the book. King wanted to explore the selective blindness and bystander effect that allows the worst things to happen unchecked in America, and explain how so many tragedies desensitize the people of a town so that when kids go missing, it's just kind of shrugged off and even laughed at by the cops. You'll notice there's kind of a woofing sound effect as the bullies chase the nerd down the creepy alley that Charlotte just passed. We're probably gonna have another missing kid here. There's a sign on the butcher shop window, keep foods moving. It's a food conservation PSA to not waste the foods in your crisper. Also another nod to the food motif of this episode. Leroy tells his wife that after Shreveport, she shouldn't get involved. Shreveport? Hey, in Stephen King's The Stand, the kid is from Shreveport, Louisiana. That night, Ronnie hears a heartbeat under her mattress, and her bedsheet transforms into a placenta sac that fills with placental fluid. This sequence is horrifying on so many levels. A placenta should be a warm, natural place for a baby, and babies don't need air when they're in the placenta, but in Ronnie's case, it's twisted into a drowning scenario, all over a mother that she feels so much guilt over that mother dying during childbirth, and now that mom is trying to drag her back with the umbilical cord as a leash. It's all just so cruelly Freudian. Since last week also twisted the birthing process into something awful, I'm just hoping not every episode of this show will put kids through the psychological torture of the natal variety. But being this cruel is certainly what Pennywise loves to do. As with within that fang-filled maw that was the mom's womb a moment ago, now we see the glowing yellow eyes of Pennywise. So Ronnie has to chew through her umbilical cord to sever this. But the mom stands and rapidly waddles toward her daughter, a type of movement that we've seen Pennywise make in the 2017 and 2019 films, and similar to the famous shot in Guillermo del Toro's Mama. Dick Halloran gets drinks at the Falcon with 2 other airmen from the base, and Chief of Police Clint Bowers walks in. Bowers would be presumably the grandfather of Henry Bowers, who was a teen in 1989. Does Bowers know this is a gay bar? Do Halloran and his buddies? I assume those 3 are just trying to get a drink at the one bar that will serve them. In 1962, a lot of gay bars were the only places that wouldn't discriminate based on race. But based on the clearly in focus photo of Judy Garland behind Bowers, the Falcon is definitely a gay bar here, because Judy is considered a key figure in the Pride movement. She was an early ally when it was not considered that safe to speak out in support of gay people in America, and she's really where the term friend of Dorothy comes from. Now, some even believe that the Stonewall Uprising happened in part because it was 6 days after Judy Garland's death, but we should be clear that historians have explained that it's a far more complex issue of police repeatedly raiding gay bars and just that happening again and again until it hit the boiling point that Stonewall became. But the fact that Derry's chief of police drinks at the Falcon might just be why this bar has not been raided yet. The bartender's name is Elmer in the scene, and this could be Elmer Curdy from the novel, who opened the Falcon next to the bus station, hoping it would attract people, and he did not intend for it to be a gay destination, didn't even realize at first that it was becoming that, but was so happy to have customers, he just leaned into it. Chief Bowers is pressured by friends to arrest Hank despite no evidence he killed the kids, and maybe to performatively cover his reputation, Bowers tells Elmer to kick out the 3 black guys. Hey, you know, not everyone was an ally in the right way in the 60s, and there's a lot of complexities to the intersectionality between these different groups. We get this Raiders of the Lost Ark style sequence at a military dig site for the beacons, we later learn. Following the officer out of his tent with a strong push of the flaps as he walks through the site definitely recalls Belloc walking through the site in Raiders, but instead of Indiana Jones spying on them, we see Joshua Odjick's character and his friends. We're probably going to meet them next episode. I love this match cut from Halloran puking to what's either soupy mashed potatoes or applesauce sloshing onto Lily's lunch tray. We get another example of Patty at first enjoying Marge's antics, but when the number 2 is laughing just too hard, Patty turns acidic.
Hey, Margie. Weren't you wearing that sweater yesterday?
Oof, might as well call her Margie Simpson. And the way Patty says, hey Margie, kind of sounds like, hiya Georgie, to me. As Lily recalls the horrors of Juniper Hill, the table pounding of the other 4 girls playing patty cakes echoes the slamming lockers that triggered her in episode 1. Meanwhile, Will eats his lunch in the hall and we meet Rich. In Rich's locker, we see posters for Minnie Minoso, the Cuban Comet, the first black player of the Chicago White Sox, and a poster of Steve Reeves in 1959's Hercules. And we find out Rich has the hots for Margie. We hear You'll Never Walk Alone from Rodgers and Hammerstein's 1945 musical Carousel. That makes 2 classic musicals referenced so far in this series, and it's interesting that Rich is in the drum line of the marching band, kind of like a kid from River City being taught by the Music Man. Even though that bubblegum girl flips him off, he is unshaken, smiling at empanada-filled grin at Marge, and I love how a piece of that empanada falls out perfectly timed afterwards. But a kid throws a stink bomb, and Will runs right into that teacher who definitely does not like him. You'll notice on the wall a sign for a fallout shelter that was also in this teacher's classroom earlier. Some schools in the 60s would have these in the events of bombings, but little good they would do in the event of a nuclear war. Charlotte goes to Secondhand Rose. That's a thrift shop where Bill buys his Schwinn bike in It Chapter 2, where in that movie the shop owner is played by Stephen King himself in a cameo. In the novel, it's where Bill buys his bike that he names Silver and where he'll re-buy it again as an adult. Actually, the symbol of the rose is also a Dark Tower reference. The rose represents a nexus point which feeds into the health of the tower. On the chalkboard in the detention room, we see Mike loves Christine. I'm assuming a nod to the Stephen King novel about Christine, the killer car. Actually, a few minutes after this, there is a car that looks a lot like the red 1958 Plymouth Fury that Christine is driving by the school. But also on the chalkboard, we see some crude drawing of Principal Dunleavy boning Bert the Turtle, and then someone just got real mad writing fuck Derry and fuck Paul fucking Bunyan. Also, someone made some fake baby feet walking up through the chalk dust, which has got to be pretty disturbing for Ronnie considering what she just saw a baby do last week. Will says the smoke from the stink bomb is the same chemicals found in the clouds on Jupiter and Venus.
So, yeah, maybe I smell bad.
Or maybe I'm just covered in stardust.
I love this kid. We must protect Will at all costs. We see various missing kid posters. Danielle Van Helden, Colin Wood from Booth Avenue, also goes by the name Woody. This kid looks so young. January 12th was 8 days after Maddie was taken. And hey, the kid is holding a clown doll, so I'd start looking there. Chief Bowers scares Lily into snitching on Hank, getting him falsely accused and arrested. Leroy tests Masters with that Makarov PM pistol, and General Shaw confirms that the whole thing was a test, but not a loyalty test, but rather a test of Leroy's damaged amygdala, which is the part of the human brain that processes and regulates fear. Shaw briefs Leroy about the Soviet plans to put ICBMs in Cuba, so I was right about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And in this special projects warehouse, we see scientists taking photos of old-timey baseball shirts and hanging them up. Also in the space, we see a Model T car or some other old-timey car being disassembled, and a sign from the Kitchener Ironworks. So these would all be artifacts from Pennywise's past attacks that we're going to see in future seasons. The car being from the Bradley Gang shootout in 1935 and the Kitchener Ironworks explosion in 1908. Not sure about those baseball uniforms, but you know, a game of baseball could have been affected at either of those events. Shaw explains Operation Precept, a plan to win the Cold War before any missiles would be fired using a secret weapon.
Something that was buried in Derry a long time ago.
Shaw explains that this weapon generates debilitating fear, something that could stop a man dead in his tracks, something buried in Derry and surrounded by a series of objects that he refers to as beacons. And they need Leroy, whose amygdala condition stops him from feeling any fear. So this is interesting. It seems to be some new lore that the show is contributing. Maybe they're looking for the meteor crash site where the It entity first crashed into Earth when, according to King's backstory, he broke away from the Tommyknocker ship. Maybe the Defense Department thinks they can weaponize the deadlights. And maybe we're gonna find out the way the US government got those Soviet ships to turn away from Cuba was by catapulting Pennywise onto the ship. Lily goes grocery shopping. The bag boy initially side-eyes her with his hostile look. He looks rather like a young Bill Skarsgård, if you ask me. We also see a sign on one of the aisles reading, "Help Wanted, Stock Boy." Maybe Lily Bainbridge always knocks over shit in her panic attacks, and the stock boy quit, and the bag boy hates having to clean up after this girl. The other people in this grocery store begin creepily stepping in and out of view behind corners, reminding us of Mrs. Kirsch behind Bev in It Chapter 2. Lily passes by cans of Calumet baking powder. This is a huge Easter egg, a reference to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining and the Room 237 documentary, because one of the conspiracy theories presented in that documentary focused on how that can of baking powder and its Native American war chief logo was prominently in focus for certain key shots in the film. And the theory claimed that The Shining was actually about the genocide of indigenous tribes in America. And compared to the other crazy shit in that documentary, that take actually felt pretty valid to me. But with this reminder of The Shining and the specific iconic things that Kubrick added to King's story, it kind of just fits here that Lily is essentially getting lost in a hedge maze sequence. As Lily passes by the orange soda, she hears Pennywise's voice call her crazy. From drinking orange soda back on the standpipe in episode 1 to drinking it with Chief Bowers now, maybe we're gonna find out there's some association with drinking orange soda and feeling like she's crazy. This older woman tilts her head and smiles, a very Pennywise gesture, but really I think the creepier part is when the guy just leans in right behind her head as she rounds the corner. When she hears, "You should be locked up," she turns around and boom, more of that Calumet. And then at the end of the aisle she turns down, even more Calumet. I mean, hey, with all the vinegar from the pickle juice in the mix here, things are about to get reactive with the baking powder. And the cacophony of voices from the PA discount announcer, who seems to be directing all of his words to her, we definitely do hear Pennywise's laugh mixed in there. Now on the cereal boxes are her dead friends. We see Maddie, and then Susie, and then Phil and Teddy on a box. Cornflakes, a treat for all kids. But beneath those, you'll notice a clown. Always beneath is the clown. Weirdly, the other three he wrote on the box, but not Phil. Why doesn't Phil deteriorate? Like, Phil definitely died, right? The dude got ripped in half in the air. Could he still be saved in some way? I don't know. But now Lily rounds a corner and finds herself in a dead end with a whole bunch of pickles. But I love how they did the shot practically. In the same shot, they moved the other pickle shelf behind the camera and the actor to box us in. One of those jars of Melvin pickles shows the chopped up face of Lily's father.
There's my little girl. Got a kiss for Daddy.
In all the other jars, we see her father's hands, his organs, his feet. At one point, they all crash to the floor and the reassembled form of her papa slithers toward her. Creepy how his own hand is pushing his head toward her.
Just one kiss for Papa.
Yeah, he spits out pickle juice on Papa, and it definitely recalls the "come to mama." Come to mama. So of course, shit like this is gonna take her back to Juniper Hill. We see a shot of rainwater poured into a storm drain, and you know who's down there.
Hiya, Georgie.
The attendants smile creepily, taking poor Lily in. She falsely accused Ronnie's dad to avoid this place, but none of it matters. She's gonna end up back there anyway. We end the episode back at the dig site as the team dredges up a muddy classic car filled with skeletons of gangsters with Tommy guns. I assume this is gonna be a group of missing people from the Bradley Gang shootout of 1935. The episode ends with music from that era, the 1932 song Hush Hush Hush, Here Comes the Boogeyman, sung by Val Rosing. This song was used at the end of Jeepers Creepers, which is also a horror story about an entity that hibernates and feeds on humans. Big thanks to Gina Ippolito for contributing some of the research on this breakdown. And while I wasn't wearing the shirt at the beginning of the video, I am wearing it now. Again, this is like the best Halloween shirt ever. Happy Halloween to all of you, and special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Rick Denmon, for supporting us at the executive producer level. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars Network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.